Shalom Aleichem, dear friends. It's wonderful to see everybody. Oh, shkoch, okay. Wonderful to see everybody. We spoke last week and 2 weeks ago a little bit B'inyanim Milchamos. What is going on in the world when the Jewish people are at war? What's going on in the world when the world is engaging in Milchamos? There is a philosophical conundrum. It's a practical, theological, philosophical challenge that we need to address, which is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu for sure doesn't like war. It's not a thing that Hashem likes.
Hashem ish Muhammad.
Ah, good. So the Barbanel on that?
Hashem ish Nakama.
So, yeah. So, by the way, the Barbanel says, when you read those psukim, he says it's supposed to be read bitmiyah. Hashem ish Muhammad. What, you think Hashem is a man of war? The Barbanel. But we're going to address Bichlal. There's what to... Correct. That Hashem does milchamas is Baal milchamas. Does he want to?
To get back on our enemies?
Yeah, he does. It's milchamas mitzvah. There's an idea of milchamas mitzvah. So firstly, we should just point out, and I want to say this, Mirosh, the fact that something is a mitzvah, don't accuse me of being a kofar yet. Maybe in a minute, but not yet. Just because something is a mitzvah doesn't mean that Hashem wants you to do it. So hold on a sec. Firstly, with the Jewish people, we get to. That's a separate question, but it's a good question. We'll get there in a moment. There are 613 mitzvahs. One of them is to execute murderers in Beis Din. So you're from. You want to make sure that you mekayim all 613 mitzvahs. So you have to become a dayan. You have to make a machloikas between people, the right people, one that's going to get angry enough to kill his friend. You have to figure out that there's two Eidim there that are going to give him hasra, that are going to warn him, so that you can fulfill the mitzvah to kill a murderer in Beis Din. Correct? That's what Hashem wants, right? Yeah, 100%. Does the fact that there is a mitzvah to do something doesn't mean that that's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants. It means that in a particular circumstance, with a particular set of conditions, the correct thing to do, the Ratzon Hashem in that situation is to do that. And then there's other mitzvahs, for example, putting on tefillin. There's no precondition that Hashem wants you to put on tefillin. Is it the same mitzvah? Putting on tefillin is the same mitzvah as killing a murderer in Beis Din? No, one you hope that you do every day, and one you hope you never have to do. Yes? There's a mitzvah. This is uncomfortable. There's a mitzvah to get divorced. One of the 613 mitzvahs. It's a mitzvah. It's a mitzvah midaraisa. Right? So at some point in time, every couple should sit down and have a conversation. When does it work out for us to get divorced? Right? No, lav dafka. Lav dafka. A person sits down. A couple sits down, and someone now they're this week works for me. Does it work for you? Good, excellent. But and then that's what Hashem wants.
It is not to marry you back.
Unless you're a kohen, in which case now you're in big trouble. So you have to really work on the calendar and scheduling well for that. To be machzir grushasa, there's a mitzvah to remarry your wife if you divorced her. It's machzir grushasa. Yeah. So there's 613 mitzvahs. Everybody here wants to be mekayim all 613? I hope not. I hope not. I mean, you can't. But should you want to? No. You're very frum. So you should at least want to. You should want to fulfill all 613 mitzvahs. You should. I used to joke that when my kids would go to school, the teacher would say you should fill out a mitzvah note. So mitzvah notes are fun. because none of them are mitzvahs, right? You know, Yankee helped his brother with, okay, I wanted to start sending in real mitzvahs. My son destroyed an Ir Hanidachas. Sidaraisa. So, but with right, that's 100%. He gave lashes to somebody. It's a mitzvah. It's a mitzvah in the Torah. It's a mitzvah in the Torah. You have to give lashes to some. Yeah, 100%. You should kill an Avisheker. You should, right? Right, yeah, at least once you have to, right? Right. I'm saying, so the point that I'm making is obviously that not every mitzvah is a mitzvah that Hashem wants. There are many mitzvahs that Hashem doesn't want. There are mitzvahs that HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, do you think Hashem wants there to be a Ben Sarah Mara? For sure not. For sure not. Maybe, maybe. That's a machlokes in Chazal. But for sure, HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't want it. He hopes that that's not the case. Well, pashut. Meaning, many mitzvahs that are a mitzvah are only a mitzvah because HaKadosh Baruch Hu says in that circumstance, that's what you do. That's Ratzon Hashem. But not every mitzvah is a mitzvah that you should want. There are many mitzvahs that you don't want. There are many mitzvahs that you hope you will never, ever, ever fulfill.
Under certain circumstances.
Right. So the question then arises, what is milchama? What is milchama?
Isn't that a standing mitzvah?
Of course it is.
Infinite.
Does Hashem want it?
Yeah, you have a mitzvah saseh, right?
So getting divorced is a mitzvah saseh. Killing an Avisheker is a mitzvah saseh. Giving Malchus is a mitzvah saseh. Does Hashem want the mitzvah of Mechias HaMalek? Does Hashem want that? Your question is, what's the alternative? Meaning, should we make sure, this is a hypothetical. Lu Yitzur, we knew exactly who Amalek was. And Lu Yitzur, that was the mitzvah. Both of those things are hypotheticals, meaning machloksim on all levels. Should we make sure to keep around at least one Amalekite to be able to be mekayim the mitzvah in the next door?
That didn't work.
Right? Yeah, it didn't work out well. It didn't work out well. Meaning Pashtus is, HaKadosh Baruch Hu very much hopes that this mitzvah will be finished and then never be repeated again. Right? That's the goal. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu told Yeshua, it's mitzvah in the Torah, and Yeshua was the one that was leading the Jewish people to destroy the 7 nations of Canaan. So, was that mitzvah to finish it, or no, now we have to be mekayim this mitzvah in every generation you hope that you finish it. There's certain mitzvahs that you hope you never have to do and that you never have to do again. Right? There's certain mitzvahs that are not supposed to be. Meaning, Ratzon Hashem is not that this thing carries on forever. Ratzon Hashem is that you finish it and then it's done and then it's over and now nigmar. So the question is, what about milchama? What about milchama? So there's a chiyuv in the Torah. There's a mitzvah chiyuvis, and there's a, yeah?
It's a chiyuv.
Comparison of Amalek to the 7 nations of Canaan. 7 nations of Canaan were destroyed, were eradicated. Amalek was not.
That's true. There's also a shaila whether or not Amalek is a din. I'll just give you the chakira. There's a shaila that says diukim in the Rambam whether or not Amalek is a question of genealogy or ideology. There is such a machlokas. So there is such a machlokas. There is such a machlokas in the Rambam. The Kesef Mishnah deals with this. Rav Soloveitchik was strongly of the opinion that based on Reb Chaim, based on the Kesef Mishnah's understanding of the Rambam. I don't know if we have any more copies here. There you go, right in the front there. That Amalek is not a genealogy. Amalek is an ideology.
Yes.
And that Rav Soloveitchik had a lot to say about this with regards to whether or not you can take reparations from the Nazis, Yimach Shemam, after the Holocaust, because there is an issur of taking any meaning what the ushlalam lavos, meaning can you take the spoils of war at the end of Milchemes Amalek, so it seems to be not so. And he held that taking reparations for the Holocaust was asur min Torah, and also that it came with a tacit implicit mechila, which he didn't think that any survivors had the right to be mochel for the people that were murdered. There's a lot to say about that. But li'inyanenu, just for the moment, it's worth noting that milchama might well be one of the things that HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't necessarily want. And I'll point this out to you from a number of discussions that we should have and need to have. But we'll start just the beginning paragraph that you see on the page here. For those that have never yet had the experience of learning anything from Rebbe Nachman of Breslov, so you should know that Rebbe Nachman isn't simply the guy from the videos of people clapping on top of vans. Rebbe Nachman was arguably not arguably, he definitely was. His ranking I'll leave to you to figure out, one of the deepest and most profound Jewish philosophers of the last 1,000 years. Meaning, what Rebbe Nachman was mechadish in terms of the way that Jews should think about ourselves and HaKadosh Baruch Hu and the Torah and the world, she'en kamoyu. He was brilliant she'en kamoyu. To a certain extent, it's a chaval that the idea of Breslov was captured by people that sing and dance and clap on top of vans, which is nothing wrong with that. It's just that's not nearly even the tip of the iceberg of Rebbe Nachman's philosophy. But this is recorded by his Talmud Reb Nosson in Chayei Mohoran and Taf Kuf Mem Vav, where he writes as follows. Quotes from his Rebbe, from Rebbe Nachman, Diber le'inyan milchamas hamalachim. He talks about, once Rebbe Nachman was remarking about wars that were going on at the time, 1700s in Europe, no shortage of them. That one king is fighting with another king. Al ezen nitzachan, for some particular victory or something. And they murder people unnecessarily, many of them. When you talk about what's going on between Russia and Ukraine right now.
Yeah, that's good.
Right, I'm saying, so what's going on between Russia and Ukraine, it's just...
5,000 a month or something.
No, by the way, nobody even knows at this point in time. The news is bored of it. The first couple of months it was like, ooh, let's talk about Milchamas. It's Milchamas to talk about. Now nobody knows how many people are alive or dead. The world has moved on. They moved on. What happens next? Weiß ich nicht. Does anybody necessarily care? The people in Russia and Ukraine do. Maybe, some of them. The rest of the world is like, well, it's a fascinating thing. People's appetite for caring about things kind of like tapers off at some point in time.
Only us they care about.
They care about that, so there's a lot to speak about why, but not for now. What was Rebbe Nachman's take on this? Hot take by Rebbe Nachman of Breslov on the idea of Milchama Bichlal. Says Ve'amar, and he said, Shekvar nisbatlu kama shtusim min ha'olam. That Baruch Hashem, already by the 1700s, many stupid things have already been eradicated from the world. It's a lot of dumb things that the Torah speaks about. The Torah speaks about a lot of really, really dumb things. Things that people were chasing after in previous generations. Like all these idol worshipping practices. Show you shechtin b'neim le'melech. They would check their children for Melech. The Torah says it's isur deraisa to sacrifice your son to Melech. Now, I don't know a lot of people that have this Yetzer Hara today, but apparently it was enough of a thing that the Torah had what to say about it. And the Torah says, don't sacrifice your son to Melech. When you teach this mitzvah, you go through the Tariq mitzvahs, Bisman Hazeh, you have to explain to somebody, was means das Melech, and why would somebody sacrifice their son? And it's insane. Which means that the world, Baruch Hashem, has matured. In some ways. The world has matured. Nobody right now has the Yetzer Hara of shechting their son for Melech. So he says, that there were many of these stupidities that existed in previous generations. People did a lot of really, really dumb things, and all of these dumb things no longer exist. It's not a thing that people care about anymore. It's not like somebody were to say to you, no, we're shechting our son, like, what are you doing this weekend? We're shechting our son for Molech. You'd be like, huh? Once upon a time, they would be like, mazel tov. Like, people were into that, right? And people had this drive, this desire and now it's like, this is insane. These are shtusim, yeah?
A different form.
Again, again, are there Meshuggahs doing Meshuggah things? Yes. But that's not the same thing.
It's a different Mohoran.
That's fine. But what I'm saying is there are certain avodah zaros that used to be very common, that people, are there aspects of those Yetzaharas that are still Chai v'Kayim today? Yes. But la'at has the world matured and progressed? Yes. As a result of the Torah Kedosha? Absolutely. Absolutely it has. I mean, the Chiddush of the Torah, this is a conversation for another point in time. But I was discussing this with some of my Talmidim this past week, that there is a fascinating Chiddush of the Torah by Akeres Yitzchak that everybody misses because we don't live in that world. By Akeres Yitzchak, there were two Chidushim that HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells Avraham Avinu. The first Chiddush is, don't shecht your son. That was a Chiddush in the world that Avraham Avinu lived. But the second is, do shecht the animal. Meaning, there was a point in time that humanity understood that there is no difference between shechting a person and shechting an animal. No difference. And the chiddush of the Torah is, no, there is a difference. That there is a difference between shechting a person and shechting an animal. That was a chiddush by Akeres Yitzchak. That Baruch Hashem, in the world today, mostly people agree to. But in the days of Avraham Avinu, this was not something that people agreed to. This was a chiddush. And Avraham Avinu came along and said, HaKadosh Baruch Hu said to me, don't shecht your son, do shecht an animal. And in the world that Avraham lived, that was not necessarily true. Maybe they were the same. What's the difference in shechting a person and shechting an animal? Oto davar. So there's shtusim that the world had, that we have Baruch Hashem, la'at grown out of. The Torah HaKadosh came along and said, don't sacrifice your children, and don't beat your wife, and don't be violent and aggressive. And does that mean that these things are all out of the world today? No. But is the world overwhelmingly a kind of more moral place than it was in the days of Mitzrayim? I think so. It is definitely a kinder and more moral place. And that's because the influence, the hashpah of the Torah Kedosha has spread in the world. As we've discussed a number of weeks ago, Litzarenu harav, our great misfortune that we take full culpability for, this is our fault. The spread of the Torah has not happened directly through us. It's happened through other religions that have based themselves off of us. But core pieces of Jewish morality have spread through the world, through Christianity and through Islam, and that's our fault. Meaning we should be the people spreading this to the whole world. That's last week's parasha. That's the point of this whole story. We're supposed to be the people spreading the light and morality and kedusha and tahara that the Torah Kedosha expresses and explains. We have not been matzliach in that in the last 2,000 years. We've been in galus. We're supposed to get back to doing that. That's the goal. Ultimately, we're supposed to. And one of the things that's going to happen at that point in time, not only will people believe in one God and will abandon all of the avodah zaras, but at some point in time, we'll get back to not murdering people, which the world calls milchama. I'll share with you, and this is just kedai to see. It's worth understanding. Rav Shlomo Yosef Zevin, the original author and editor of Encyclopedia Talmudit, he has a small sefer that they've reprinted a number of times called La'or HaHalacha. Anybody seen the sefer La'or HaHalacha? There's a number of different editions. The recent edition is good. They've got some good footnotes there. Those are shmuzim that he gave in the shul that he had in Tel Aviv, like in the 50s. The first 9 chapters there, he deals with milchama, with halachas of milchama. Halachas that, as we've discussed, people didn't really have what to speak about or ask about for many, many generations because we didn't really have real shaylas in milchama. And he talks about whether or not, this is a great question, whether or not it's mutter to go to war, meaning for non-Jews. Is it permissible for a non-Jew? I mean, Jews have a milchemes mitzvah. We have the idea of a milchemes mitzvah. We have an idea of a milchemes reshus, which needs a Navi, a Melech, and Urim V'Tumim, a Sanhedrin. There's a lot of different possibilities of what exactly is ma'akev that, but that's a shalei halacha. But is it permissible for non-Jews to go to war at all? This is what to discuss. Is it ever permissible? Meaning there's an Isser, one of the Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noach is don't murder. So how can a guy go to, meaning a non-Jew, is he allowed to go to war?
Defensible war.
Maybe.
In every war, there's an aggressor and a defensive.
Is it ever permissible to be an aggressor? To save your life, yeah, okay, they're a roidif. But is it ever permissible to go to war? He argues perhaps it's not. Perhaps it's not permissible to go to war, meaning for a non-Jew, ever.
It means no cause.
No, everybody believes in a cause. Meaning, but is there ever a cause that justifies murder? Not. So there's a lot to discuss in that. Is there a value, meaning that supersedes the Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noach? Keep that as a footnote of what to discuss. Nevertheless, we'll see this next piece in Rebbe Nachman. It says, "Va'achshav nizbadlu harbe shtusim." Baruch Hashem, he says, in the world today, many stupid things have already been eradicated. Va'adayna tauzeh u'mevoicha zu shel milchamas lo nizbadlu. But this idea of war still pervades and still permeates human consciousness. People still find justification for it, explanation for it, that there are times that it is sensible for a person to go to war. That means that there is a shtus, there is a stupidity that we still think is okay. Which means, not you, you're all wonderful and amazing. It means I'm an idiot, because I still think that milchama is sometimes okay. That's what Rebbe Nachman is saying here. Is once upon a time, sacrificing your son to Molech was justifiable. And now, it is completely indefensible. And at some point in time, the idea of milchama will be ludicrous. And be like, what? They did that? That's insane. What? People are going to be like, seriously? That's ridiculous. People did that?
Will that be only in the time of Mashiach?
Well, irrelevant of when. The idea is, what's the consciousness that we are trying to achieve? At some point in time, we'll get there. Now, it might be that this happens before the time of Mashiach. It might be that it only happens well into the time of Mashiach.
Human nature won't permit that.
So, once upon a time, people thought that sacrificing your children to Avodah Zarah was also human nature. That makes sense, of course. The point is that human nature, well, perhaps the nature doesn't change, the application of that nature does. It does change. The application of that nature, meaning what becomes permissible in terms of human consciousness and psychology, does change. There are certain things that people think are wrong, but are defensible. And then there are certain things that people think are wrong and indefensible. I'll give you an example. This is hopefully going to upset you. I hope this upsets you. Yeah, I'll make you more upset, I promise. But there's an Issa D'Oraisa to break Shabbos. Everybody agrees? It's an Issa D'Oraisa. You're not allowed to light a fire on Shabbos. The punishment, midin Torah, is skila, right? Break 2 witnesses, right? It's an Issa D'Oraisa. In the days of the Beis Hamikdash, you'd be executed for that. One of the Isurim in the Torah is don't murder. The punishment for murder is also execution. Is there anybody here that would be more comfortable having a Mechalel Shabbos coming over for a meal versus a murderer? You're more comfortable with having a Mechalel Shabbos coming over for a meal, having a cup of coffee with a Mechalel Shabbos versus a cup of coffee with a murderer. Yes?
Yes.
Anybody think the opposite? Anybody think they're the same? It's exactly the same. Aunt Susie, who doesn't keep Shabbos, is the same as a murderer. You don't think that. I don't think that. You know why we don't think that? Because our sense of morality is not defined by the Torah. That's the truth. We are still living in a world of shtusim. Now, I'm not going to tell you, chas v'shalom, I'm not going to tell you that Aunt Susie and the murderer down the street are the same. Chas v'shalom. I'd be insane to say that, and it would be immoral for me to say that. But can I tell you that there was a time, and perhaps there will be a time, that the prohibition for murder will be equally as obvious? Well, the prohibition against being Mechalel Shabbos will be equally as obvious as the prohibition against murder? Yes.
The punishment will be the same.
No.
But
The morality will be the same. Meaning when people think about a Mechalel Shabbos, they'll be like, oh! They'll think about it with the same, like... Now, it's almost insane to think that. But there was a time that was the case. And that's the world that the Torah describes. Yeah.
Again, the distinction is the Mechalel Shabbos, that's being Adam Lamokum, whereas the murderer is being Adam Chavero. I think, being Adam, Lamokum, Hashem will take care of that.
Okay. No, my point is that being Mechalel Shabbos in the days of the Sanhedrin was also been on L'Chaver because the Beis Din put you to death for it. It's a mitzvah that nobody wanted to do, right? But it did have ramifications on society. And I'll also point out that the distinction between Am L'Chaver and Am L'Makom is never really listed in the Torah. It's a later day development. As human beings developed, we started seeing differentiations. But in a moral conscious society that is kol kula al pi dinei Torah, beginning, middle, and end, that is all Ratzon Hashem, the whole thing is Ratzon Hashem, there would be no distinction between these two things. None whatsoever.
It's only to Jews, not to Shabbos is B'nai Noach. There's no Isser of Mechalel Shabbos.
That's true. But there is an Isser of violating, there's a Chiyuv of Dinim, which means that Avodah Zarah and murder are exactly the same for B'nai Noach. Yeah.
I was about to say something like that, which is that it's a societal thing. There are plenty of people around who are not mitzvah for Shabbos.
Yeah.
With no problem, but everybody's mitzvah on not killing somebody.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm not saying that we should equate these in our minds right now. What I am saying is that you see from the punishment that the Torah has meted out for these things, that the severity is equivalent.
If you're a Jew, would you do it?
Correct. And we don't believe that.
How do you know?
I'm saying, I ask you, would you feel more comfortable executing a murderer or executing a Mechalel Shabbos?
I'd be very circumspect about doing either.
Okay. But if one of those things was in the news,
Easier to justify.
which one would you think you would feel a deeper sense of like,
It'd be more criticism for killing yourself.
That's my point. That's my point. Is that as far as the Torah is concerned, there is a morality which we are, again, in our practice, where nobody has a murderer, good. Everybody believes to keep Shabbos, good, excellent.
We have in our own time something where the morality has changed.
Many things. But that's the point that Rebbe Nachman is pointing out here. I want to just finish this line because the Rosh Yeshiva is here. We'll just finish off this one line. So he says, "V'haya mis loitzitz min chachmem v'amar belashon leitzanas shehem chachamim gedolim v'chayshim v'chaykrim v'chachmasam eich la'asais kleizayin nifla." Rebbe Nachman would laugh about the fact that people would spend all of their personal and national resources in order to come up with better killing machines, better weapons, stronger weapons. They can kill thousands of people at once. And he says, is there anything dumber than that? to kill lots of people for nothing? Is there anything dumber than that?
People who are developing the weapons don't think it's Bechina.
That's the point. But that's exactly his point. That's exactly his point. Now, again, I'm gonna say, this is not talking about what morality is currently. It's talking about what perhaps morality should be. Now, the paragraph that we didn't get to, Be'er Hashem Yisbarach we'll get to next week, is this next piece where Rav Kook addresses whether or not HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted us to engage in milchamas, in conquering Eretz Yisrael, in the days of Yeshua ben Nun, or perhaps there was a different way. And that's the question that we, Be'er Hashem Yisbarach, will address next time. Hoping to see you all there. Have a beautiful day.